Hi everybody, I'm Jack. This is Raw Tropical Living. Thanks for joining me today. Today I want to talk about what I consider the number one tool for success on the raw vegan lifestyle. Now this isn't a physical tool. I don't want this to be misleading, but it is a tool that you have in your tool belt, in your tool chest, whatever you want to call it, to make this lifestyle work for you. I kind of feel like, I'm getting, whether it's questions directly to me or just things that I see around online, I'm almost getting to where like almost everything I want to answer with a one-word answer. Transition. Transition. People are struggling on this lifestyle, and they just don't quite get it. They don't quite get it. People keep talking about this transition, and I find for a lot of people could fall back on the transition and they would have a lot greater success on this lifestyle, in my opinion. Even people that have been doing it for a while. And I think sometimes the lack of transition, the lack of proper transition, is a little bit ego. It's almost like, okay, well, I can't do the slow version. I want to be the one that does the fast version. I want to go raw vegan overnight. So I see people sometimes that just keep over and over and over, and they mention it online, so they keep talking about how they're failures and they're constant failures over and over, and they keep doing the same thing expecting to get a different result. You know what we call that. The transition, I just really can't stress that one enough. I know there'll always be the person out there that went raw overnight, and for anybody that can do that, go for it. And anybody that has done that, you got to it even quicker. But if you are having trouble whatsoever, if your body has been resisting this lifestyle, if you've done it a number of times, if you've never got the benefits that you've wanted from this lifestyle, do a proper transition. Even some of the people that technically stay fully raw and are not getting the results on this lifestyle probably are not getting the results because they did a lack of a transition, and they're keeping a lot of fat in their diet to stay raw, which is kind of counterproductive in my opinion. There's nothing wrong with fat. There's nothing wrong with a healthy amount of fat. And hey, we all kind of have our particular idea about what that healthy amount is, whether it's from 10 to 20%. But there's a lot of people going way beyond that, I think, just to stay raw, just so they can keep that designation of being raw. That just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I'm not very much for, hey, anybody out there that wants to do it, like I always say, I always have to think like a lawyer and throw these little things in there. But if you want to do listen, I'm not going to ever sit around and debate low fat versus high fat. Every once in a while, I'll get somebody on here that's like a professor or something, and they'll write a long book on the virtues of high fat or the ketosis or all that kind of stuff. Ain't my thing. If you want to do it, go explore it. Go explore some people that do that kind of lifestyle, but that's not for me. I'm somewhere, and I'm not the uber, never adding overts. Only 5% is, like some people that think 5% is high. So anyhow, just saying right there, I would say, don't use fat don't let fat hold you back on this lifestyle just because you want to be fully raw. There's a lot of people that just don't see the value of that transition. And it kind of goes back to that video I did, within the last 4, 5, 6 days about taking things in smaller bites. That transition period is the perfect example of when you can do that and make this lifestyle work for you. You're breaking things down into smaller parts. When you're not and also psychologically, when you're not trying to do everything at once. Some people just can't handle that. Some people freak out when they're trying to give up this, give up this, give up this, add this, add this, add this. And it's just too much at one time. And it's much more easier to assimilate into your current way of living, into your current lifestyle, and your physical, and your body, and whether it comes from the detox of getting rid of the stuff in your body to just being able to learn how to do this lifestyle and getting used to eating like this. Just can't say enough about the transition. I don't know why more people don't stress the transition, talk about the transition, especially to people that are struggling on this lifestyle. And you know what? As far as the transition goes, that's debatable too. You know, some people onto how long a transition lasts. Now, one thing I do like to say every time I talk about transition in a video is you don't want to get stuck in transition. I've mentioned that a number of times. It's not a like transition is not a place. It's something you're moving through. You don't just park there and hang out there for a while and just kind of, in a general way, well, I'm in transition. No, your transition is active. You always are working on something. You're dropping this, working towards more of this, less of this, and you have to participate in it. So you don't want to get into these I've seen people that are 2 years in transitioning. Now, nothing wrong with that if you're going back, but you figured out, okay, I need to transition. I never really transitioned in going back. But if it's a 2-year transition, that's a bit long. But everybody's got to figure that out for themselves, and you can kind of control this whole thing. You can really control. That transition line is a very fluid thing, and you can control your body. You can control the freakouts, whether they be physical or psychological, simply by just moving a little bit back and forth in your transition. Now, if you've watched many of my videos, you know I'm not a big fan of going backwards. But I'm just talking about, like, you know, adding foods in. I'm not talking about going back to a certain type of eating or adding bad things in there. But let's say you're transitioning and you're getting a little too out there on the fruit and you've eaten a lot of fruit, okay? You can balance that out. If the fruit starts to be, if you're eating too much fruit, I don't know that exists for me, but if you're eating too much fruit, you add the greens in there. If it's still a little too much for you, you're freaking, you're having cravings, maybe you're having some detox symptoms, you add some more fat in there. And even in that transition period, that's why it's the transition period. You know, learn how to use cooked food and learn how to use the right kind of cooked food to head off potentially bad situations, you know, to when you have a craving or when you're dealing with something or when your body needs something, or when your body's telling you, okay, you're transitioning a little too fast, you need to pull it back a little bit. Nothing wrong with some steamed vegetables or a sweet potato or something like that. And like I say, also too, another little disclaimer is I'm always just talking about transitioning to get you as high carb vegan, as raw as you want to. You can use the transition process for your own for however you want to do it. So it's not necessarily I'm trying to get you to transition to fully raw. So just you can use these in you can translate this into however raw you want to go. But don't use this process. This is a very, very powerful tool. It's a very powerful tool. I swear I need somebody in my laboratory that I can play with to verify some of these things, but it's just, I just try to go back and think of like how I did this in the beginning without any real knowledge, the mistakes I made, what I would tell myself if I could get in a time machine and go back 4 or 5 years to make this process easier for me. That's a lot of what this channel is about, me getting in my own head and kind of trying to think about what I would go back and how I would deal with me, in the very early stages of this. Like I say, the mistakes I made and any shortcomings I had at the time, any times that I was consistently not feeling well, the blood sugar issues back then, low blood sugar, not eating enough calories. But those early stages aren't about being perfect. The transition or just even the early stages about being raw vegan are not about being perfect. They're about adjusting your body to this lifestyle. They're about becoming more educated on this lifestyle. And more than anything, just developing a mindset of living a healthy, balanced life. So part of a healthy, balanced life is not getting too caught up into this whole food thing and raw is law and I'm raw till 4, I'm this, I'm that, blah, 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 blah. We're focusing on plant-based health here. Anyhow, hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you like it, please give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button if you would. Click the little bell and send notifications so you'll stay subscribed to the channel. And I hope your week is off to a great start. Love you guys. Peace.